Why, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Joyce Dimon podcast, all about mindset, becoming confident in your best self, and taking your life and business by its horns, okay? And I'm your host, Josie, obviously, former finance professional turned coach. And today I'm joined by the incredible Gigi, who is a personal brand mentor, tea-loving bookworm. It's such a hard word for me. Bookworm, there we go. And nerd like me. So Gigi, I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's so excited to be here. This is my first podcast guesting experience. So yeah, thank you for that.
Of course. You'll do great. I already know. You'll do great. Don't you worry. Right. One thing I have to say, really have to restrain myself to not just go off on a tangent on Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Be like, oh, we could talk about that, but no. I want to obviously start off with a question. How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, that is a good story. It's a long story, but I will try and keep it nice and short for you. So I started out as a virtual assistant. So it started out sort of like a classic online business starting point. Everybody finds out about virtual assistant and that kind of thing, or social media manager. They jump in and then it snowballs from there. If you have goals to become something else, or you kind of figure out along the way, actually, this isn't what I want to do. And then you sort of, it goes from there. So that's kind of like, I went through that classic VA to coach sort of pipeline, even though it's not for everybody, but I found that it was for me. So I went from a VA for photographers, for specifically wedding photographers. Then I sort of branched out. That pivoted into being like a sort of marketing strategist for photographers. I always struggle to say for photographers quickly. So I always slow down when I say it. It's like if I say photographers, it ends up like that. So for photographers, that's why I slow down when I say it. I was doing their marketing strategy. That kind of, again, sort of did like a mini pivot into the personal branding side of stuff. At the time, I wasn't as aware of the concept of, well, I was aware of the concept of personal branding, but the term wasn't really what I was doing, because there's so much more to it than just the sort of sharing your personality side of it. But that's the side that I was really sort of focusing on, because with photographers, they're the ones who hide behind the lens. You very rarely see them. But I did loads and loads of market research for people who were looking for photographers. And they were all like, yeah, the personality is a massive factor in the decision-making thing, because especially for weddings, for example, you're going to want someone who matches the vibe of you and your guests and your event, and for any event really. And it was something that so many of them just hadn't really considered when it came to their marketing. And so I was able to help them really come out of their shell, and kind of, I think it was something that a lot of them struggled with, oh, well, I don't want to make it about me. It's about my work. It's about the photography. But actually, you're a service provider at the end of the day. And part of that service is you. So yeah, once that clicked, we really got the ball rolling, and we're able to bring out their personalities. And then that turned into a membership that never quite went live, because I pivoted into helping online service providers, which is then branched into service providers in general, and then coaches. So that's kind of the pipeline. And then it's gone more into a sort of overall personal branding, not just the personality side of things. So yeah, that's kind of my journey, if that was the question. Sorry, that was a long ramble.
I love a long ramble, especially about the story. I know that it's there's always so much that we obviously experience, and so much that leads into how we get to where we are today. And I totally appreciate, sometimes we just don't know, okay, what do I actually need to highlight?
Yeah.
What are those key points that are really relevant? But that's why I'm just go off on a tangent and we roll with it. Because in the end, you will point those things out that are most meaningful.
True.
In terms of personal branding, if I would come to you and be like, Gigi, I have zero clue how to do this. I feel like I'm boring AF. I feel like I don't have anything special to share. I don't even want to be in front of camera. I'm a shy person. I'm an introvert. What would you do?
I would say there's a lot to unpack there. But where I would start is to put your personality into your written copy, because it's the I don't want to say the easiest way, but it's the least scary way to start getting your personality out there. So if you're, for example, like your social media captions or like story sequences, like text sequences on a story, if they're written in a very sort of professional way, leaning a little bit corporate, because I mean, I've been there. I feel like I felt like I needed to sound professional to be taken seriously, and that is just not the case in our industry, in our sort of online sphere. Everybody wants just the real you. So I would say start with your written copy and write it as if you were speaking. And if it helps, record yourself talking about what you want to talk about, record a voice note or speech to text, not text to speech. And then cut out the filler words, your ums, your ahs, your pauses and that kind of thing. And you've got a fantastic first draft of a caption that you can then edit a little bit. Don't over edit is my biggest piece of advice on that, because then it starts sounding too polished again and not like you. But just, keep as much of your personality in there. And that would be my sort of top tip for getting started with, if you're like right at the beginning and you're just really no idea what to do, start with your written copy.
Oh. And one thing you said that you also had to like overcome was the letting go of the professionalism.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Because I found that very, very tricky when I came from corporate into like the entrepreneur space. I wanted everything to look like perfect, like literally licked. I wanted it just to be so nice. And we're like, oh, I need to have all those great pictures with like blazer and here and that. And then you also see, obviously, in the online space, like those perfect profiles and accounts from people who have that. They have like the perfect brand photo shoots and everything just looks perfect. And there's little personality actually coming through.
Yeah.
So when I jumped in, I thought that's how you do it. That's how you do it. But now 3 years in, I'm like, actually, no. Because now I know, no, like I'm literally looking for those profiles where you see a bit more personality, where you see a little bit more fun. But obviously, there's still like a balance, I guess, right? Between, okay, what do you want to share, especially if you maybe are more introverted or shy. So there might also be a need for boundaries to be in place. But there's two questions in one. I know it might be confusing, but the one question would be how to let go of the professionalism. How was it for you? And also, how do we put those boundaries in place to, one, maybe not overshare, but to still allow enough personality and so we are not corporate?
Yeah. So I think with the letting go of the professionalism, I would say don't let go of your professionalism, let go of the corporate, because a lot of us will have come from like traditional jobs, whether it be retail or corporate or anything like that. And where it's always hammered into us that you have to be professional, you have to be polite, the customer is always right, all of that, which I take issue with because that's not the full quote, but that's another tangent. But yeah, I think with the getting rid of the corporate side of things, I think it's just looking within yourself and thinking, what do I actually want to keep? Is there any part of that corporate side of me that I do actually value? Because if there is, if some of it is like, I don't know, openness and honesty, for example, which often isn't very corporate, but if that's a part of it, then dig into that and then ask, okay, why is that? And what would that look like in this context? Because it's a completely different context. You're your own boss now. You are not you're not ruled by anybody else. You don't. The rules are gone, and we are sort of in a privileged position where we are kind of still at the beginning of this sort of type of industry. Sort of the general public aren't really aware of what this is. Like if you were to tell somebody, oh yeah, I'm a virtual assistant, you can sort of, the average person could sort of piece together what that means. But, you know, when most people were like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
So even though this sort of like, I use virtual assistants as an example, because that's just sort of my background. But even though they've been around for quite a while, it like nearly coming up on 10 years now, it's been like a thing. We're still right at the very beginning. And I feel like this is going to be like a new big never say that word, trajectory. There we go.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. And so with the letting go of the corporate, I think just thinking about what you want your business, your brand, your every day when it comes to your job to be, because it's your job at the end of the day. And because you're building it, you get to build it your way. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to drop being professional, although it can look different. At the end of the day, professional is, are your clients getting what you promised them? Are you helping them in a way that you have said you're going to? And are they happy with that? And that's professional. If you deliver what you promise. All the rest of it is preference, and the right people will be attracted to that. But at the same time, it will repel the wrong people. And that's what you want, because we have this deep-seated fear sometimes of being like, oh, what if people don't like me? What if that puts people off? Good. It will put people off. That's the point. We want to attract the people that we like, and and that will like us and like working with us, and let the people who don't like us and just it's not their cup of tea decide for themselves, that's not my cup of tea, and move on. I went off on another tangent there, so I'm gonna try and remember your second question, which I think was
that was around setting boundaries. So
boundaries,
how do we like establish those healthy boundaries if we are a bit more introverted, we don't maybe want to share or like vlog every single day of our lives and put that out there, but to still share like those key pieces that make us us, or that are unique to us, and we feel like this is something great to either connect or to either be seen as an authority as well.
Yeah, so you can definitely build a strong personal brand around while still being like quite reserved, as it were, with your personal life. You don't have to share your entire life. This is something that is a real pet peeve of mine when people talk about personal branding, and they talk about it in a way that's like you have to get comfortable oversharing your personal life and your lifestyle and that kind of thing, because often the people who say that are people who have built a personal brand on that and it's worked for them. But that completely discounts personal branding from anyone who wants to keep things private and have those boundaries. Most of my clients are on that side of the fence, where their home life is their home, their own space. They want to keep it to themselves, but they still want to have a personal brand. And so we've worked on putting those boundaries in place, and I think really deciding where those boundaries are. Of course, you can change them in the future. They can move, but having sort of write it down. Like, I will talk about this, but I won't overstep this boundary. So like, I won't show my partner or my kids, for example. And yeah, just really honoring those boundaries, and because it kind of it creates that separation, because you don't want the two to blend, because then it just kind of becomes a duplicate of your personal socials, which it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
But also, if you're someone who doesn't really share much on your personal socials, to have to suddenly feel like you have to share, I'm exactly the same. To feel like you have to suddenly start splurging your entire life is like terrifying. And so I think bringing together, like I call it like a signature blend, because my branding is very tea themed.
I love it.
I love tea, and so I use tea puns all the time. So I call it the signature blend. It's just a collection of things that can be quite surface level, that sort of add up to you. So it could be your music taste, it can be your, like, I don't know, your dog, it could be your, as surface level as your coffee order or something like that. But it's the collection of these things. It's what you're reading, what you like to read, like the genre you like to read, or just having these little things that you share quite often so that people can associate you with that thing, can actually be really powerful, because ultimately it's those things that people resonate with and connect with and remember, which is what personal branding is all about. You want to be remembered and have like that reputation. People aren't going to remember you for that long story you told the other day, even though it might have impacted them and really like you resonated with them. When they're describing you to somebody else, when they're recommending you, they're going to say, oh, she's the tea lady who wears 50s dresses. She's, she does weightlifting and loves Harry Potter, and that kind of thing. That's how you're going to be described to other people. And so having that collection of fairly surface level things that aren't too scary to share about is a good way of sort of keeping those boundaries together, keeping those boundaries in place, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So how many like different things in terms of the signature blend would you recommend? How different sorts of tea do we need to put into that to make it
I would
work?
say, I would say maybe like at least 4 or 5, just so that they've got different touch points. Because if you go ham on like one thing and become known for one thing, that's not going to be very unique. So, for example, I know so many people in the online space that have loving Taylor Swift and being a Swiftie, massive Swiftie, as part of their personal brand. If that was their entire personality and their entire personal branding was built around, I am a Swiftie, I'm sorry, love, but that's not that unique.
Yeah.
People
They would just be seen as a Taylor Swift fan then at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. People can't recommend or like recognize you based on that. If someone were to say, oh, it's the person who loves Taylor Swift, who's that? There's loads of them. So I would say have like, I mean, I don't have anything against Taylor Swift. I'm just, I like her music. I'm not a massive Swiftie, but I know loads of people who really are. And so if all of those people did exactly that and just made their entire personal branding and their entire personality being a Swiftie, you would not be able to tell between them if you were to describe them on paper. And so I would say have like maybe 4 or 5 things. I mean, it can go, I would say maybe, I guess 4 to 8 in that sort of realm that people can pick up on, because then you're giving people a broad range of things that they can connect with. Because, you know, while you might bond over your music taste, that might be like, well, I don't know what that is. I can't resonate with this person because that's all they're sharing about, and I don't listen to that music. Whereas if you've got a few little things, then that can build lots of different connection points with people. And even if they're not interested in like the other things that you're talking about, they're going to resonate with that. And you can start a conversation based on that and build those connections.
And you know what I love about this approach the most actually is that these are normally things, obviously, that you already love. You already have like joy when you talk about these things. Like you really like it. It's not something that you force yourself to do. So it comes more with ease. So that really helps to like build a personal brand, literally with ease and fun, because like I could talk about Harry Potter every single day. I won't, because I don't want to be known as a girl who just talks about Harry Potter or the one who's just like into weightlifting or obsessed with cats. But as you say, like by bringing all of these elements into the mix, it just creates like a fun kind of like playground almost. I feel like that I can use in different situations, how I feel on the day. Like today I didn't go to the gym, so there was no point for me posting anything about the gym. But so I just showed up and talked in the stories, or I might show my cats later. Maybe see they are like conked out. It's so hot. They're literally just laying on the ground. They're not doing anything else. But yeah, it can be fun and can be easy.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say pick things that you do find fun as well, that you will find easy. Like there can be things that, like, for example, you might love like a really niche TV show that nobody knows about. Talk about that. But also if it's something that you're going to find difficult talking about because you're like, because it's so, maybe it's like this cult thing and you know, you don't really know how to explain it very well. I would say that's not a very good thing to have as like a staple part of your signature blend. Definitely include it, because there are going to be people who do resonate with that. Case in point, someone I'm working with at the moment, we bonded over, I don't know if you've heard about Firefly, the sci-fi show.
No,
it ran for 1 season a few years ago. It's absolutely wonderful. They ended it with a movie, and I absolutely love it. And I've bonded with one person over this because it's such a niche thing. It has like a massive following, but it's because it's such a small show, and it was like a sort of low budget thing. It didn't really take off for various reasons, but not many people, like the general public, don't really know about it. And so it wouldn't have been wise to make the main part of my personal brand about Firefly, because people would be like, what is that? She likes a show about space cowboys, apparently. What is that? What even is that? Like, that's basically what it is. It's space cowboys. But I would highly recommend you go and look it up if you're a sci-fi fan. Firefly, absolutely wonderful. But yeah, those like really niche things, talk about them, absolutely, if it's something that you love. But I would say be careful when it comes to putting it as part of like a consistent part of your personal brand.
So where's the line that we need to be aware of not crossing when it comes to maybe this particular topic that you want to talk about? If you talk about it too much, it might like consume your whole brand, or it might actually maybe direct your brand into a direction you don't want to go into. And the reason I'm asking, just to give you some context, is especially with me loving to go to the gym, whilst there are obviously some like cross points with like mindset and leadership, confidence building, self-trust from my perspective, and loads of people love it. They are like, obviously when we did this exercise with the emojis, right, loads of people like put up the strong arm, and I was like, cool, yeah, they do recognize that, so it is an element in my brand. But my boyfriend, actually, he was like saying you should not put it out too much, because we don't want people to associate you with just the girl that trains, or like a gym bunny or whatever, to not have it like harm basically your brand in terms of mindset coaching, leadership coaching, that kind of stuff. So where would there be like a line where we need to be careful?
I think the line is based on like ratios rather than quantity. So, and this is really where strategy comes in, because like for all that personal branding could be just sharing your personality and showing up as yourself and, you know, unapologetically, all of that, which I do advocate for, but I am a strategist at heart and strategy works. So I think having it written down somewhere, have like a sort of bank of topics that you talk about consistently, even if it's down to like the day, like, oh, on Friday I talk about weightlifting, even if, you know, that much structure is helpful to you. Having some kind of strategy in place is going to be really helpful for not leaning too heavily into those the ones that you don't want to become, you know, overtake or become your entire brand. And you're right, some things can, it's like too much of a good thing. It can harm your brand. And you might, for example, using your weightlifting, you might become known as like a fitness coach, for example, not known, but maybe assumed that you're a fitness coach if people weren't to go onto your page, but they just watch your stories or just see some of your content and you're posting about being in the gym all the time. Someone could be scrolling by that, seeing it a lot and thinking, oh, she's a fitness coach, and have absolutely no idea that you are a mindset coach. So I think, leaning too far one way or the other can be a little bit harmful. And so the answer to that is strategy, and getting really clear on what you want to do and when, what you want to highlight and when, and how you can weave it into what you do as well, because you can absolutely make connections between, you know, your weightlifting and your mindset, as you already do. And, you know, between your music taste and your thing, like how it makes you feel. For example, if it's, you know, I don't know, let's say you're an anxiety coach, for example, this particular piece of music or this like genre of music is, I found this really helpful, and here's my story about why. It's linking in that story, and that's where the authority building comes, is where you bring your story to that. And when these elements are part of that story, it just makes it all the more powerful, because you've got the story building the authority. Here's how I overcame that, along with these little relatable points that people can check in and be like, oh yeah, I like that that's in there, I see what you did there. Strategy is my answer.
I love that. It's definitely something I need to do more of. So my takeaway from this is definitely write it down, because I know those different elements and when to talk about them, but I haven't written it down. And it's not like sometimes I literally forget, and then I might just go for days without putting anything like personal brandy-ish into my story. So I feel like that for me will be definitely a good takeaway, because I need structure. Like I need that little bit of masculine energy so the feminine energy can flow.
Yes, amazing. And I would also say, when it comes to strategy, I always advise to have a kind of, I don't know, like a pillar, like, you know, like you got content pillars. I talk about like personal brand pillars. Have one of your pillars be dedicated to that sort of spontaneous side of things, so that you can go with the flow and just post whatever you want. Because if you don't have that, and especially if you're a personality type that like is very spontaneous and doesn't like to be caged in, having that there as like your space to play around and just do what you want, and have that space to just say, for example, I don't know, on a Friday, you post about whatever you do, you talk about whatever you want, you just go out on a ramble, go out on a ramble, go off on a ramble. I mean, you can go out and ramble at the same time.
Combine it.
Rambling rambles. Create that space within your strategy to just play and have fun. And because that's what keeps it fresh and that's what keeps it fun for you. And that's what stops it from becoming a chore. So yeah.
I love that. Love that.
That's the question.
Yes, it did. Well, there was no question, but you expanded on it. And it was great. I loved it. Before we wrap up, I want to do a little fire round of questions with you if you're up for it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So rules are simple. You already know. You can answer them with one word or a short sentence. But before we do so, please let me know a number between 1 and 10.
Ooh, 6.
Okay, you get 6 questions.
I'm glad I didn't have a higher number there. I was going to go for 8, but we'll go 6.
I think there was only one person so far in like, I don't know how many episodes who said 10 or like 9, and one person who said 1. Most people go for like 7. So you're like bang on in the middle. That's great.
Amazing.
Okay.
Let's go.
What is the Gigi way of living and leading your best life?
Ooh. Whimsy.
Whimsy.
Bringing in whimsical things and like romanticizing your life a little bit. Yeah.
I like that. When shit hits the fan, what do you tell yourself to get through it?
What do I tell myself to get through it? This is only temporary. Yeah.
I agree with that.
I'm trying to keep my answers really short.
Okay. You can also go off on it. Like, again, you do it your way. What is your key habit for success in your business or life?
Key habit for success, I would say probably family, and like surrounding myself with people who I can take a break from it all with, who I know are supportive of me and can be there to either like talk through it or just be an escape from that.
I love that. I think it was yesterday where I saw, I heard actually, it was an audiobook where she said, don't surround yourself with like-minded people, but like-hearted.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
And that kind of like came up as you were just like describing. I was like, yeah, that's surrounding yourself with like-hearted people.
That's beautiful. I love that.
As you're a book nerd, I have to ask you, what is the favorite book that you would recommend to anyone?
Okay.
Or your top 10?
That's 2 different questions, because my favorite book is obviously going to be Lord of the Rings, but that book is not for everybody. It is a slog for most of it because it reads like a history book, and that's the point, which I love. So I would, it's my favorite book, but I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend, I think, is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. That is like one of my all-time favorite books, and it is hilarious. Like when you actually you might think of it as like, oh, it's a classic, and it's a like, oh, the classic's stuffy and boring, and it's about people having tea and going to each other's houses, but actually it's the politics and all of that, and the restrictions of the time, and her just breaking out of all of that, I absolutely love. So yeah, Pride and Prejudice. I
love that. I haven't read it yet, so I just noted it down to put on my to-be-read list. There we go. What is one word or an expression that you say all the time?
Blimey. Yeah, blimey is my reaction to most things.
Blimey.
I'm very, very northern. Oh, blimey. Cool, blimey. That's the thing I want. Yeah.
Love it. What is the theme song of your life?
Ooh.
Or current season?
I'm not sure about current season, but I think my life would definitely just be concerning hobbits from Lord of the Rings. Got to be that. I mean, I'm bringing the nerd right here, but
yes,
it was. I walked down the aisle to that when I got married.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, that even makes me emotional. I haven't even been there. I'm just like thinking about, oh my gosh, yes, it's such a good song. to do that. Oh,
but it's a song that's got like loads of different elements to it. Like it's got the little whimsical, but then it like builds. So I think it's a good soundtrack piece to have for your life, I think.
Yeah. I still don't know, like, whenever we get married, like my boyfriend and I, like we are not engaged or anything, but I'm still sometimes thinking about which song it could be. And I'm like, the Naruto main theme song. There's like one that's like really sad-ish. That is also really beautiful. So like that would be a really nice one. But he always says like, no, that's the one where something really bad happens. And that would be like a spoiler and we can't do that. And I'm like, but it fits so well. Or maybe like a Harry Potter version. That would be great too.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much. To wrap up, where can people find you? How can they connect with you and dive into your world of personal branding and everything?
Yeah, so the main place is Instagram. At Selfie Mode Marketing. And that's pretty much it. I do have the same handle on TikTok, but I've not started posting on there yet. I will be doing soon. So if you're listening in the future and I exist on there, you can also find me there. And also, I don't know when this is going out, so I don't know whether it will be up yet. But I, with a business bestie of mine, I'm setting up a podcast of my own.
Yeah,
I know, which is very exciting. So, yes, I don't know when the first episodes will be going up. We recorded them on Friday, so it might be a little while yet. I think we might want to get a few episodes under our belt before we start posting. But again, if you're listening a bit further in the future, that will exist. And I don't know where you're going to be able to find it, so it's probably not helpful for me to say, but maybe I can ask you to update the description with it or something.
Will do. So when it comes out and your podcast is already out there, then it will definitely be in the description box. Do you already have a name for it?
We do. It's called Tea and Tangents.
Tea and Tangents. I love it. It's so fitting.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I bring the tea. We both bring the tangents because we both have raging ADHD. We're both unmedicated too, so there are lots of tangents.
Nice. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on today. This was super fun. I feel like I personally learned a lot, and I know the listeners and the watchers, the YouTube watchers, definitely have as well. There's so many action items in here as well where I'm like, go try it out. Like, don't just sit on information. It's something I always say, like, don't just sit on the information or anything that you learn in a podcast or whatever you consume. Do take action on it, because that's where you then will see the changes and the results. And with that, I see everybody next week with another episode. Bye.
Bye. I recently learned that apparently the feels like one means what it feels like in the shade. So in the sun, it feels even hotter.
Oh my God, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's why it feels so hot when you're in the sun. And it says like, it says it's meant to feel like 25 or something. And it's, you're dying.
Actually, like why. You're just boiling. Yeah, you're being slow roasted.